Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. From Eden to eternity, the Bible tells one big story of redemption. My name is Tiffany, and I want to spend a few minutes with you every day walking through the Bible chronologically. Together, we will explore God's sovereign plan as the events of Scripture unfold and point to Jesus. Hey, Daily Grace family. Welcome back to our Eden to Eternity podcast. Tiffany here, and we are getting ever so close to the end of Joshua. And while a lot of information was shared today in chapters 19 through 21, there are some key truths we want to pull out as we near the end of this book. So let's get started. Yesterday, we ended with the 7 remaining tribes gathered around the tabernacle in Shiloh. Benjamin received the first lot, and Joshua gave them the boundaries of their inheritance. Today, we pick right back up with the land allotment for the tribe of Simeon. What makes this tribe unique is that they are not actually given boundaries. They are given a list of cities because their land allotment is in the southern portion of Judah's territory. They were surrounded by the tribe of Judah, and over time, they would be completely absorbed. We might be tempted to wonder why, but we were given the reason back in Genesis chapter 49 and Deuteronomy 33. 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, led the massacre of the men of Shechem back in Genesis 34. When Jacob blessed his sons in Genesis 49, he said in verse 7, "Their anger is cursed, for it is strong, and their fury, for it is cruel. I will disperse them throughout Jacob and scatter them throughout Israel." We also noted back in Deuteronomy 33 that Simeon was not included in Moses' blessing of Israel. Simeon's inheritance of just 17 cities reminds us that there are consequences for our rebellious behavior against the Lord. And we are also reminded that God not only keeps his promises of blessing, but he keeps his promises that bring punishment as well. This was important for Israel to remember in light of Moses' final message from the Lord in the book of Deuteronomy. Obedience to God's commands brought blessing, and disobedience would bring punishment. After Simeon, the lots continue to be cast, and the remaining tribes of Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan receive their inheritance. Then, at the end of chapter 19, and the bookend of this land allotment section, Joshua receives his own inheritance. As a member of the tribe of Ephraim, he is given the city he requests, Timnath, in the southwest region of Ephraim's territory. Joshua was a faithful servant to the Lord, and God now blesses him with rest and land to call his home. But perhaps what stood out the most concerning Joshua's land allotment was that he willingly took his last. As Israel's mighty, conquering leader, he could have easily allotted land to himself first, but he placed the other tribes and his fellow spy Caleb before himself. Throughout his life, both as an apprentice to Moses and then as the leader of Israel, Joshua displayed humility and reliance on the Lord. His humble leadership is a foreshadowing of how Jesus would lead, and Jesus' calling for all who follow him. Humility is necessary for obedience. Humility allows us to die to self and seek the will of God and the best interests of others. Joshua modeled this well, and we will see further evidence of this tomorrow as he shares his final message with the nation. We now come to chapters 20 and 21. These 2 chapters list the record of the 6 cities of refuge and the 48 Levitical cities. The cities of refuge reminded Israel that they were to be a nation of justice, governed by the statutes and commands of the Lord. And the Levitical cities, dispersed throughout the land, reminded the nation to worship the one true God. We first learned about the cities of refuge in Exodus 21 and Numbers 35. Here in Joshua, the details concerning accidental manslaughter and how these cities served as protection to the one fleeing from the avenger of blood are summarized. Moses names 3 of the cities east of the Jordan River in Deuteronomy chapter 4. Those were Bezer, Ramoth, and Golan. Now that the nation has taken the promised land, the remaining 3 cities are named Kadesh, Shechem, and Hebron. All 6 cities were spread across the land so that a person could flee to the closest one and seek refuge. Interestingly, all 6 cities of refuge were also Levitical cities. In a way, those who fled an avenger of blood found sanctuary among the Levites. We can only imagine how living among the priests enabled the person who accidentally killed someone to find a place of healing, protection, and even service. God's chosen tribe of priests cared for the nation across 48 different cities. These 48 cities were divided among Aaron's descendants and the 3 clans of Levi, Kohath, Gershon, and Merari. These chosen cities provided the Levites with a home, a place to care for their flocks, and a place to carry out their duties among the nation. The Levites' inheritance was the Lord, but he graciously provided them with a place to rest and work. The Levites' presence among the tribes was also meant to serve as a good influence among the nation to promote justice and worship. As chapter 21 draws to a close, we read a beautiful summary statement in verses 43 through 45, which say, "So the Lord gave Israel all the land he had sworn to give their ancestors, and they took possession of it and settled there. The Lord gave them rest on every side according to all he had sworn to their ancestors. None of their enemies were able to stand against them, for the Lord handed over all their enemies to them. None of the good promises the Lord had made to the house of Israel failed. Everything was fulfilled." These verses declare the goodness and faithfulness of our great God. I've tried to think of a poignant way to reiterate all we have read and learned on our journey thus far, and I keep coming back to other scriptures that not only say it far better than I do, but point our hearts to these same truths about our unchanging God. The psalmist reminds us in Psalm 33:4, "For the word of the Lord is right, and all his work is trustworthy." The angel Gabriel declares to Mary in Luke 1:37, "For nothing will be impossible with God." And the Apostle Paul clearly states God's character in 2 Timothy 2:13 when he says, "If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself." He is faithful, he is trustworthy, and nothing is impossible for our great God. Each of these truths have been on display throughout our journey, and even more so as we've seen promises fulfilled here in Joshua. And these truths will be evident as God's plan of redemption unfolds. God's faithfulness cannot be denied, and it is fully manifest in his Son, the inheritance and rest our hearts desire. I'm so glad you were here today. I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow as we complete the book of Joshua. Have a great day, friends.